What's up, everybody? This is the KASSA show on EBS TV. እንደምሰነበታችሁ ተመልካቾቻችን በመከታተል ላይ ያላችሁት ወይም ይህ የካሳ ሾው ነው በኢቢኤስ ቴሌቪዥን እየተዘጋጀ የሚቀርብላችሁ። የዛሬዋ እንግዳዬ መክሊት ትባላለች። ኢትዮጵያ ተወልዳ አሜሪካ ያደገች ነች። My guest today is MEKLIT. She's a jazz musician, a great musician, a great performer, by the way, who was born in Ethiopia and raised in States. She now resides in San Francisco. She is also a member of group Arba Collective. We're going to talk about that later on. But for now, welcome, MEKLIT. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so what was it like growing up in the States?
Well, you know, it was it was interesting. It was interesting because we left Ethiopia at a time when there weren't so many Ethiopians in the States. So I grew up first in Iowa, which is in the middle of the country, and there was literally one other Ethiopian family, just one. And they heard through the grapevine just that another Ethiopian family had moved to Iowa City, and one day they just showed up at our door and knocked on our door and said, "Hey, you're here, welcome, and let's be friends." And so you can imagine that it was, you know, it was kind of challenging in its own ways, and but you know, we adjusted. After that, we lived in Brooklyn, which was much more international.
So do you keep in touch with the family that was?
Actually, I do. Yeah, they were just. The last time I saw them was at my last birthday party.
Okay.
They came. So you know, but once we moved to Brooklyn, you know, it was easier. There was other Abishas around. We even had cousins. But yeah, it was interesting. It was an adventure, I think.
By the way, when I introduced you, was it like, did I miss anything out? You want to reintroduce yourself?
Oh no, that was good. You know, it all comes out in conversation. The conversation is the thing, I think.
Alright, so let's talk about your music. So when did you first start doing music?
Well, you know, I always wanted.
Fell in love with music.
Oh well, I always wanted to be a singer. You know, even when I was a little girl. But I just didn't know what that meant. What does it mean to be a singer? What does it mean? You know. So, but it wasn't until I moved to San Francisco that I started taking voice lessons, and I started taking like classes on guitar and theory, and
so
like
you were
how
like
do you
into it?
Yeah, and it just I made that decision. I said when I moved to San Francisco, I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm really gonna do this, and then it was so amazing because it was like every step I took towards music took 10 steps towards me. It was just really instant. The affinity and people started responding. I started performing right away, and really early on was able to gain an audience of people who were supporting me grow as a musician. So it was a wonderful unfolding.
Okay, I've seen you perform. I've seen MEKLIT perform, by the way, and you're really good. I mean, you didn't have no stage fright when you first started. It was all.
Well, you know, I think that everybody gets nervous, but the trick is to use your nervous energy, because if you engage with your nervousness right, it's just extra energy.
Okay.
And you can imagine that what the difference is like when I'm talking to you one-on-one here, I know a lot of people are watching, but it's us, right? It's us in this room,
so
and we're sharing the conversation. But when you're on stage and you're in front of hundreds of people, you have to be big enough. Your energy has to be big enough to engage with 300, 400, 500, 1,000 people at once. And your nervous energy helps you do that. It helps you grow so you can expand and reach the people all the way in the very, very back of the room.
So you engage with them. You don't forget that they're there.
Oh no, they're there.
I mean, most performers do. You know that, right? They just forget.
Everybody has their tricks, you know. Everybody has their tricks.
So as a guest on my show, you have to choose the first song. So what's it gonna be? The first video.
You know, I would love to choose a song by Gigi, and the reason that I really love her is because she's a songwriter, you know, and that's so inspiring to me because, you know, just aside from just being a singer, you know, I love writing songs, and I love other artists that write songs too. So let's play a song by Gigi now.
Okay, we'll be right back after a song by Gigi. You're still watching the KASSA show on EBS TV. So Maklit, who's your inspiration? Like, do you have any particular musician or artist?
Well, you know, for me, I think inspiration is so constant. Everybody inspires you. And sometimes you can be inspired by things that are a little bit indirect, right? Like a huge inspiration for me is a lot of instrumentalists from jazz music, like John Coltrane and Miles Davis and things like that. But then there's also singers like Nina Simone and Billie Holiday, and Mahmoud Ahmed is a huge, huge inspiration for me as well. So there's all that, but then I also think that when it comes to inspiration, it can be a sort of daily thing. Like when you go to these different cities, and I grew up all over the States, every city has its sounds. The sounds of what does the street sound like? What are the sounds that you hear? You know, like growing up in New York, there were the sounds of jazz musicians playing in the subway. There was also early hip hop because it was the 80s, and there were break dancers in every subway station. And you pick up all those things, and all those things make their way into your music. Sometimes in this mysterious way, like you don't know how it happens. You're not necessarily saying, I want to be like that person, but rather you absorb things slowly, and slowly you build your sound from that.
So do you do hip-hop too?
Well, I have a new album coming out early in 2012 with two MCs.
Okay.
Gabriel Teodros and Burnt Face, both Ethiopian and Ethiopian American MCs.
In the same group you were in?
Part of the Arba Minch collective, indeed. And so I myself am not a rapper, I'm a singer.
You don't even try?
No. I no.
Come on, I can beatbox for you and you can do something for me right now.
Oh no.
Okay.
If you beatbox, I'll sing over it, but I won't rap over it.
Okay.
Actually, I would love to learn to beatbox, though. I do love that.
You do? I'll teach you. So
will you?
It's easy.
You promise?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. What do you think of the commercialized vibe, if I can say that? I mean, no offense to anybody who's doing modern music or anything, but do you think they're taking the soul out of music?
You know, it's tough, and I have this conversation a lot. And part of that is that, like, when you're talking about reaching millions of people, and, you know, things have been going pretty well for me over the last year and a half, but I'm not quite reaching millions of people yet. But I think when you do get to that stage, there's a lot of pressure to be appealing to a very, very broad audience. And part of that does mean like a kind of thinning out of the real substance of music. So a lot of the people on the top 40 I don't necessarily connect with. I think a lot of them are good singers, a lot of them are great songwriters, but that super, super pop sound that's kind of in the top 40, that's not really what I do. It is a struggle, and it's also a struggle because...
So you're saying you don't support it?
I think that I support music that comes from the heart, that expresses humanity, that brings people together, that expresses, you know, even if it expresses a difficult and troubling world, like a lot of hip hop that came out in the 90s was really, you know, like it was expressing a real rebellion and a real, like, a violent world, but maybe that was the world that people were coming from. And so there, in a way I can respect that, but what I don't respect is music that's made for the purpose of simply selling, and that's not made from a place that's coming from what's truly within you. And so that's what I don't support.
So you do think people are taking the soul out of music?
Well, I think that there can be great pop songs. For example, you know that song by Gnarls Barkley, Crazy?
Yeah, I do.
That is a great song.
Yes.
That song sold millions and millions and millions of records.
Even though it wasn't like commercialized.
Well, it came from a true place. I think it came from a true artistry. So it's not saying that just because you come from a true artistry doesn't mean you can't sell millions of records. I think it does happen, but I think there's a lot of artists that are created by commercial interests that are not necessarily the artists themselves, right? And that's what I have an issue with. But you can be an artist like Gnarls Barkley and make an amazing song and connect with millions of people. That's possible.
Yeah, okay, I get it. We'll be back after music from Gondar. Have you been to Gondar, by the way?
Oh, yes, we played right at the foot of the castles in Gondar, actually, last May when we were here.
Okay.
And we made a music video on the castles.
When is it going to be released?
That's going to be out in just about less than a month. About 3 weeks from now, we'll have a new video from Copper Wire, of the project with Gabriel Teodros and Burnt Face.
Okay, have you been anywhere else, like besides Gondar?
In Ethiopia, I've been... You mean to play music or just to be?
Just to visit.
Oh, well, I've been to Lalibela, Aksum, Gondar, Harar, Arba Minch, Awassa, Langano.
Wow, so you've been everywhere.
I've been a lot of places. I haven't been to the west. I haven't been to Jimma yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll shoot a video next time there.
Hopefully.
So we'll be back after this song. Don't touch the remote.
KASSA ምኞቱ ከአፄ ፋሲል እስከ ቴዎድሮስ ያፈራችው ጎንደር ትወደስ ከመቅደላ ቢሰዋ ሕይወቱ ብዙ ነበር የካሳ ምኞቱ ከአፄ ፋሲል እስከ ቴዎድሮስ ያፈራችው ጎንደር ትወደስ
you're still tuned in, you're still watching the KASSA show on EBS TV. How is your Amharic, by the way?
Oh, it's not so good.
So let's try
It's
this
pretty
in Amharic.
basic.
Come on, like you have to try this in Amharic.
Mokralo gun.
Is she?
I
So
can't.
እንዴት ነበር አሜሪካ ማደግ? ሙዚቃ እንዴት ነው የወደድሽው? ወደ ሙዚቃው ዓለም ወደ jazz. You play jazz, right? Like you're a jazz musician. Should I call you like a jazz musician? Are you comfortable with it?
No, you know, I play with jazz musicians, but I do that because...
You have to answer it in Amharic.
Oh, then I guess that's it for me.
No, I was just saying. So if you have to like name the best day of your life, what would it be? What day?
Well, I guess it was the day I was born.
You don't remember the day you was born. Come on.
But that's why I'm here, right? The best day of my life? Oh, you know, I don't know. You know, there's I feel that when it comes to superlatives, you're the best, your favorite, the worst, it can be hard to answer because life is full of so many grays. Nothing is black or white. I've had many wonderful days and many challenging days.
Okay.
You know, it's both.
All right. So I read somewhere that you visit like each year, every year.
Yes, to Ethiopia. Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you visit? Like, what's the purpose?
I think that one of the reasons, that's a very basic reason, is that I can't help but come back. You know, Ethiopia, it gets a hold of you, and it grabs you, and it pulls you. It has a pull, and suddenly you'll be somewhere else in the world, and you'll wish you were here. And so I come back to fulfill that deep desire
So it's
to
like
connect.
an addiction.
It a little bit, yeah. You know, a little bit. I come here also to learn. You know, to try to learn about the culture here and to try to connect. And it's also like this is a time when things are changing so fast. And if you don't come for a while, well, suddenly what you thought Ethiopia was, it becomes like Addis Ababa changes all the time. It's crazy how fast it's changing. And so I want to stay relevant. I want my knowledge to stay relevant. And so I have to keep coming. I think, you know, in a lot of interviews and mostly with media, when I talk about Ethiopia, I think that a lot of the way that I end up communicating about it is a perspective that they haven't seen. And so for me, when I'm talking to media, which is a lot of how I end up interacting with people, if they don't come to my shows, maybe they read the interview that was in the newspaper, or maybe they see the interview that was on TV or on the radio. And so in my interviews, I talk a lot about really needing to evolve what our image is, because it's not really relevant to what Ethiopia is, and Ethiopia is so diverse, and there's so much more to it than that, and has so much historical solidity and grounding, not just for Ethiopians, but actually for all of humanity.
Yeah.
You know, this is where humanity began, and that's so deep. And so there's so I do feel in a way that I'm able to communicate that on a regular basis.
Right. So I've seen you perform with people, I mean musicians who are based here. So do you, like every year when you come, do you try to collaborate with musicians? I've seen you perform with Henok and Nati, right?
Oh yeah, Henok and Nati. You know, I respect them a lot. They're really wonderful
They're really
musicians.
good too. By the way, Nati's a very good friend of mine.
That dude, that dude is
crazy.
an amazing drummer. He's amazing and such a sweet guy. And you know, I think it's really important to have relationships with the arts world that's here. So I really do love to collaborate, and I'd like to collaborate even more in the future.
And what about with singers, like vocalists?
Well, you know, Munit is a really good friend of mine, and I would really love to collaborate with her in the future. And you know, I'm really open for collaborations, and so that's something that I'll continue to explore. You know, last time I was here in May, I brought my band, which was upright bass and trumpet and a drummer. And that was also really wonderful for my band that I travel with over there to get to come here and see this part of me, to see this part of my world, and also to have them collaborate with the musicians too, so that they get to learn and then bring what they learn back with us on the road. So it's a real exchange. It goes both ways.
All right, okay. So don't go anywhere, because as you promised, MEKLIT is gonna perform live here.
Indeed.
a song or a sneak peek from her upcoming album, and for the first time for the media, right? So we're lucky. So don't go anywhere if you want to see MEKLIT perform. We'll be right back after MEKLIT's video. So stay tuned.